Today we are going to learn about the legislative branch, which consists of Congress, which is the House and the Senate. So let's start out with the Senate. The Senate is often known as the upper house. Most would agree that being a senator is a slightly bigger deal than being in the House. I'm not saying the House is unimportant, but the Senate can do some things that the House can't do. So it's a little bit more powerful. We've learned this first part, the number of members per state, 2 members per state. This was a part of the Great Compromise. Smaller states liked that. So there are 100 total. Length of terms. If elected senator, you are in office for 6 years. That may seem like a random number, and people often ask, well, why is it 6 years? Not to get too smart, but the reason it's 6 years is because that's what Article 1 of the Constitution says. I'm not exactly sure why the founding fathers settled on that, but it is a 6-year term. Also, it reads unlimited amount of terms. This means if I get elected, I serve my 6 years, I can run for a re-election. If I win again, another 6 years, I can keep running as long as I want and be a senator as long as I continue to get elected. As far as the requirements, you must be 30 years old, and you need to be a U.S. citizen for at least 9 years. So you can immigrate to the United States, become a citizen, wait 9 years, and then run for Senate. President of the Senate is the Vice President of the United States, and the current Vice President of the United States is Kamala Harris. She was not elected to the Senate. She was elected with Joe Biden to be Vice President. And her role, she only is involved in the Senate when there's a tie. So let's say we're voting on a law and there's 100 senators, so it's 50-50. That's when they call her in. She comes over and votes and breaks the tie. Other than that, she doesn't participate in the Senate in any other votes. Current Kansas senators, I don't know if you've heard of these guys before. Jerry Moran, he's been senator since 2011, and Roger Marshall since 2021. So Moran's in his second term. He's in his first. One thing about Kansas politics, Kansas became a state in the 1860s. We've had 33 senators total. 28 of them have been Republicans. What does that tell you? Kansas is a very conservative or Republican state, and we haven't sent anyone that's a Democrat to Washington, D.C. as a senator since 1939. So 80 years, 82 years, something like that. And there is Jerry Moran, and there is Roger Marshall. Okay, the House. And you're going to see some differences here. As mentioned, it's often called the lower house. The number of members per state, this is the one that's based on population. Again, a part of the Great Compromise. In total, there are 435 members of the House, and larger states have more. I'll show you a map in just a second that demonstrates that. Length of terms, not 6 years like the Senate, only 2 for the House. And they, like senators, can run for an unlimited amount of terms. There was one man that was in the House almost, I think, for 50 some years, 49 maybe. So he was reelected 24 times. Age and citizenship, not quite as stringent as in the Senate. You have to be 25 years old and a U.S. citizen for 7 years. So this is the map showing you the number of representatives currently in the House. And if you follow my cursor, your bigger states, California, Texas, Florida, etc., they have a lot more than, let's say, Kansas. So that's the number. What this is showing you is every 10 years in the United States, the Constitution requires a census to be taken. And a census is just a population count. And the reason they do that is because I think we've talked about it in previous classes. Over time, we see population shifts, people moving into a state or people moving out of a state. So what this map is showing you, these states in green all have gained 1 representative, except Texas, which has gained 2. So this means in 2010, Texas only had 36 representatives, But because more people have moved into the state of Texas in the last 10 years, they actually have gained 2 more. What that means is some states in purple have lost representatives because their population is declining or not growing as quickly as other places. So someone asked this in an earlier hour. We will always have 435 representatives total. The only way that would change is if we added a state, which I think is unlikely. So we have 435, but the number of representatives you have in your individual state can change if we see population shifts. This is showing you, and it's kind of hard to read, this is showing you the state of Kansas. And if I go back, it's not letting me go back, but we have 4. We have 4 representatives. So they've broken up the state into 4 different districts. 1 is this light blue. 2 is this purple that kind of squiggles around. 3 is very small. We're in Johnson County, we are 3, and then 4. So you might be asking, why is District 1 so much larger than District 3? It's because they've divided this up by population. So what we can take away from this, there are about as many people living in all of District 1 as in living in District 3. And this makes sense because Johnson County is the most populated state or county in the state. So we have a lot more people. We're out here in kind of western Kansas. We don't have many big towns. So that's why these boxes, if you will, these districts aren't the same size because it's based on equal population. Our current representative, the only one we are going to worry about because she represents District 3 is where we live, is Sharice Davids. This is her second term in the House, and she is running for re-election this fall. Okay, powers of Congress. This gets into what Congress can do. They can write blank, collect blank, coin blank, establish blank, and declare blank. And I've tried to give you some hints to figure these out, but I'll just click onto the next slide. 5 things Congress does. Number 1, they write and pass laws. This is probably their most important task, and this is probably the task they spend the most time on. Number 2, they can collect taxes, another important aspect of their job. Number 3, they can coin money. They're in charge of money and the circulation of money. Number 4 might seem kind of random, but they are responsible for establishing post offices. The reason this is there is because when they're doing this in 1787, the post office was super important to the country. It was the only way to get messages back and forth. You couldn't call, you couldn't email, you couldn't fax. So mail service was very important to the country if it was going to survive and prosper. And the 5th thing is declare war. A lot of times people think the president is responsible for declaring war. The president is not. Officially, Congress has to declare war if the United States is going to go to war.